Mayor Pete's been declaring a win for days now. Why should people believe your victory speech over his?
Because I got 6,000 more votes. And from where I come, when you get 6,000 more votes, that's generally regarded to be the winner. Yes.
So that was Bernie Sanders making a fantastic point that when push comes to shove, despite all the shenanigans, despite all the DNC efforts, despite all of Tom Perez's efforts, despite all the media's efforts to hand victory in the Iowa caucuses to Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders has gone ahead and declared victory by virtue of the fact that he got 6,000 or so more first-round votes in the caucuses than Pete Buttigieg. And Bernie is right to do it. Look, Bernie was correct in waiting until this moment to make this claim. Bernie Sanders respected the process, respected the fact that the votes needed to be counted, respected the fact that no one could be quite sure what was happening in terms of who was performing well and who was performing poorly. And so Bernie Sanders, unlike Pete Buttigieg and the neoliberal media, held back and refused to claim victory until he was certain of the results. And now we know that Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg have basically tied in both national delegates and statewide delegates in the Iowa caucus. Whether Bernie wins a few more or Pete wins a few more, it's largely irrelevant. But what matters here, unequivocally, is that in that first round of voting, Bernie Sanders got 6,000 more votes than Pete Buttigieg. And that's the best indicator of who actually has support going forward. Because most states don't use the Iowa caucus voting model. Most states don't have a system where you go, you mark a ballot, then if the person you vote for is under 15%, you get to vote for somebody else, and then if that person gets over 15%, they get support, and if not, you go to somebody else again, and on and on and on. There's no first allocation, second allocation, any sort of arcane formulas no one understands. You go and you vote, and your person gets support in terms of delegates based roughly on how many votes they get, providing they get over 15%. Bernie Sanders dominating the first round vote here in Iowa is a much better indicator than anything else of how strong he will be in traditional primary states, like New Hampshire, which votes in less than a week's time. So Bernie Sanders is 100% correct when he said that under any reasonable understanding, he was the winner in Iowa. And it's important he did it right now because you can see the DNC and the neoliberal media and Pete Buttigieg try to finagle their way into stopping Bernie Sanders from having a victory narrative in Iowa. Again, as I noted in my video earlier this afternoon, it sort of started when Pete Buttigieg came out when 0% of the polls were in and just made up his victory claim. And then it continued and was further legitimized by the fact that, when 60% of the vote was announced, Pete Buttigieg looked like he was winning the statewide delegates by a healthy margin, and he basically ran with that and said, hey, I'm the winner. And nobody in the mainstream media seemed to really challenge him on that particular claim. And so the result of all of that was giving Pete Buttigieg the victory narrative, the victory momentum. And at this moment, when it's becoming increasingly clear that Bernie Sanders is catching Pete Buttigieg on statewide delegates, or maybe even passing him, now Tom Perez, the DNC, the Buttigieg campaign, they're complaining about the results. They're saying we need to recanvass the Iowa caucus. They're complaining about the fact that the satellite caucuses are being counted in a certain way. And the satellite caucuses, which are overrepresentative of minority voters and marginalized and working class voters, immigrant voters, they want to challenge the results of those satellite caucuses because it just so happens, I guess, that that's where Bernie Sanders did really well. And you can see through this transparent sham that the DNC didn't give one single damn about improprieties until it came down to Bernie Sanders winning under their stupid rules. And now that Bernie Sanders is about to win on those guidelines, now they're trying to change the game. Now they're trying to question whether the game was right all along. You have people like Jennifer Rubin, a Washington Post anti-Bernie Sanders columnist, basically saying, why don't we just ignore Iowa altogether? Why don't we just cancel their delegates? As if to say, oh my God, Bernie's winning Iowa. Let's pretend Iowa never even happened. So Bernie is right to cut through all of that, cut through the lies, cut through the disinformation, cut through the BS, cut through the procedural attempts to steal this victory from him, and go out and claim it. Claim it based on the fact that you have more votes than anybody else. Claim it based on the fact that you've demonstrated in Iowa that you have the real strength going for it. Claim it based on the fact that you're the one best positioned to carry on Iowa momentum into states like New Hampshire. Claim it based on the fact that even though Iowa is a very, very white state, that the small non-white population of Iowa went strongly for you and your vision and your campaign, demonstrating that you're the one that has the potential to reach out to the Democratic Party's broad, multiracial, multi-ethnic base. Bernie Sanders won Iowa. I don't care what Pete Buttigieg says, what Jennifer Rubin says, what Tom Perez says, what the DNC says. Bernie Sanders was the winner in Iowa. He took his victory. He earned his celebration. We should all get out there and let everyone know Bernie Sanders, at the end of the day, won Iowa. He's going to win New Hampshire. He's going to win the nomination, and he's going to win the presidency.